Everybody, welcome to this week's Aggressive Progressives. How are you? Wow, that's in tight. Get the top of my hair. Hey, look who's got new teeth. Hi, how are you, buddy? Anyway, hi. I don't want to show them off too much.
Your subscription dollars at play.
Hi, how are you? When I was a little kid, I had my front tooth cracked, and then it yellowed. And ever since then, I've been haven't smiled much. I always smile like this. Now, hey.
Wow, it took you a whole 27 years to get it fixed.
Yep, it took me 27 years.
That's why you couldn't get laid, was because of the tooth, right?
Somebody, I had a fan recently found me on the Aggressive Progressives, and he said, hey, I went to Jimmy Dore Comedy, and I saw some of your stand-up. And I was like, oh, I wonder if he liked it. I wonder what's going to come next. And he goes, you've really aged.
Yeah.
Nice.
Can you just crap on my stand-up?
Yeah, right. Just make fun of my material next time. Yeah.
Look who I'm here with. I even introduced our panel. Everybody, it's Baltimore policeman and Standing Rock veteran and veteran. It's Michael Wood is here. Michael, we're going to talk to him about Standing Rock, what's happening at DAPL right now. Plus, we're going to do a story about there was a big 7 indictments in the Baltimore Police Department. And Michael is an ex-Baltimore sergeant, and so we're going to talk about that, plus DAPL, plus, look who else is with me. Do you see this gentleman right here? Emmy Award winner Mark Thompson.
Yes.
That's Emmy Award winner Mark Thompson is with us. Hi,
Pleasure
Mark.
to be here. Hi, Jimmy.
And right now, Mark's from...
Hi, Michael.
He's with KFI Radio.
Yep.
Currently. Also,
Yes,
there is Malcolm Fleischner, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, Malcolm.
Jimmy, you pronounced my name correctly.
I say Fleischner, but I'll say Fleischner for him. Fleischner sounds too much like something you masturbate with. Right? I got a Fleischner like
that joke is better every time I'm on the Aggressive Progressives. I like that joke more and more. Although you've aged.
I have aged.
The joke still fresh.
It's because I lose my hair. That's why. But I'm gonna get plugs. And see how I'm losing it. Anyway, so let's get to our first story. Oh, by the way, can you come to my community first? Because this is my favorite picture from the Trump's thing. That's Senator Joe Manchin giving a fucking brotherly handshake. That's right, brother. I'm with you. That's a Democrat. There's your resistance. That guy's in the leadership of the Democrats. There he is. There's your fucking resistance, you pieces of garbage.
Yeah.
There
you
you
could
go.
have changed the world with old white guys who don't want to change the world. That would have been the place to do it, right? I mean, that was unbelievable. What a collection of guys who don't want to change anything.
Anything.
In that whole room, almost to a person.
I was glad, though. I was afraid that he wouldn't use a widowed soldier's wife as a prop, but he did. I was so afraid he wouldn't do that.
Yeah, when he got all the way through, he almost made it without doing that, and then finally he folded her in and wrapped himself in her misery.
Well, let's not pretend like that's new. Hillary...
No, they all do it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, everybody's got to remember that there's zero difference between these people.
They all do it.
Hillary sat there and used the victims of police brutality. They're the mothers of those victims.
Oh, that's right, at the convention.
What's worse?
And
I'd rather see a bro hug against a bunch of arrogant white guys that are rich. At least I understand where that's coming from. I don't understand where a progressive comes using blaxploitation to get themselves elected.
When Hillary Clinton brought on at the convention, and then guess who? So she brought on victims of police brutality.
The mothers of victims of Tamir Rice's mother.
But then guess who else she brought on at the Democratic National Convention?
Big tent, Jimmy.
We're all inclusive. Just all the things that favor what I already wanted.
But that's a fair point, that both parties do it, and politicians do it all the time. They try to wrap themselves. In fact, that seems to be Trump's default move, is to move himself into the military. He did something about
how the fuck does he get away with that? Because he's the guy who said all that shit about John McCain, and everybody's like, forget about it. What about Bo Borgdahl? What about John McCain? He got captured. He's not a hero. Good thing that guy got killed in Yemen instead of just getting captured, so you can honor him and then use your stolen valor like you're some kind of a freaking patriot.
Dude, that is DC. Have you been to DC lately? And you kind of walk around, and I never had that perspective as a kid, but when I walked around there recently, walk around there and you'll see they just glorify war. And what glorifying war is glorifying people like me getting executed in the sands for profits for those rich elite few people that in socializing the losses, that also means the bodies. It's never princes that fight the war.
I forgot that you went to Iraq.
I didn't go to Iraq.
Where did you go?
No, I was a forward deployed unit and a fast team, so we deploy out for it. We never do war.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because somebody's got to watch the back door.
Oh, okay.
Wait, that was.
Yeah.
Can I rephrase that? Is that too late?
Yeah.
It's the right slogan, but you have to be careful where you use it.
We're gonna have Milo on next week. Come on, fucking shit. All right, so let's get to the story I wanted to talk to you. Well, that was a good conversation. I think this show could go any way it wants. It could be a podcast. It could be. Can I show you one more really funny thing before we get started?
We're not started?
We started. I mean, we started, but we're slow. I saw this on Twitter. This is if the Democratic Party made an ad for Coke.
It's so accurate, though, right? I mean, come on, that is what they're saying.
That's fucking hilarious. Somebody named Internet Hippo tweeted that up.
They would also, if you drank water, they would blame you for Coke not selling enough.
Yeah, all right. It's like, what's wrong with those people not drinking Coke? Why are you drinking water?
Right.
Not the people drinking Pepsi, or the former Coke drinkers who decided to drink Pepsi instead.
Or the people who aren't drinking anything.
People aren't drinking anything. All those people aren't drinking soda at all. Yeah.
Well, I'm really enjoying this show already. This is a good idea to have all you guys on. All right, I'm going to look for a story. Oh, here it is. Okay, so I have Michael here because not only are you a veteran of the military, he's an ex-sergeant from the Baltimore Police Department who started to tell the truth about what was happening in Baltimore with the policing, and it made you. Why are you so unpopular with the Baltimore police?
I don't know if that's true or not. I don't think officers really push back on me. It's the same thing as always. It's command and power that doesn't like what I have to say.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay. So here's another story that just came out, published March 1st. USA Today: 7 Baltimore officers arrested, accused of robbing victims. See, this is weird because I thought all this shit was over with in Baltimore. I thought we fixed it, and no kidding. I thought the Justice Department. So here, let's get to the story. 7 Baltimore police officers were arrested Wednesday on racketeering charges, accused of stealing from hapless victims who often committed no crimes. You know that's important because it's in red. Committed no crimes. And of filing bloated overtime claims that almost doubled their salaries. That part doesn't bother me so much. That's just a guy getting ahead.
That's white collar
That's
crime.
virtually every city employee. I mean, not to cast too many aspersions, but there's a lot of that going on anyway, padding overtime.
Yeah, I don't. I've
been a government employee my whole life. Can we just like?
Well, then
throw all
you had to have seen
employees
it.
under the bus?
No, I didn't. But I mean to say, they oftentimes will quote a salary for a starting employee and go, but in overtime you're gonna.
But some of these cops made more money in overtime, or the same amount of money, just in overtime, fake overtime.
It's very common. It's common for people to do it in real overtime. Yeah.
All right, get back to the story. Yes. The indictment comes less than a month after the Justice. This is what I was talking about. Less than a month after the Justice Department reached a sweeping reform agreement with the embattled police department. U.S. Attorney Rod J. Rosenstein sounds Jewish, says Wednesday's charges involved abuse of power by 6 detectives and a sergeant on the city's gun trace task force team. Abuse of power. What is particularly significant about the allegations in this indictment is that these officers were involved in stopping people who had not committed crimes, not only seizing their money, but pocketing it. They're literal criminals. Like, they're not even bending the law. They're just going out committing crimes on their face. Right?
Well, they're also not, it's not just that they didn't commit crimes, but they weren't even suspected of committing crimes often. They just pull people over. I mean, Michael knows more about this, but it's worse even than that.
So I can see maybe if you're in the middle of you arrest a guy, he's a drug dealer, you take his money, even though you don't have anything on him at the moment. That's much different than what's happening here.
Well, you're kind of getting into civil asset forfeiture for a different argument entirely. But this is still underestimating it because this is a RICO charge. This is a racketeering and corruption charge. It is not just what they're saying about stealing money and stuff. This is considered an organized crime syndicate.
Which it is. Right. It is. They were communicating and they were strategizing. They were lying to investigators and collaborating over how they should lie and what they should say. Absolutely.
This is shaking down people they pull over or
but it's organized. It's not just individual
essentially.
cops.
But it goes a lot deeper than that. So when I was in the narcotics unit and the violent crime impact division or whatever they've renamed it as, the same group that these guys are in right now. And when I was in that detective group, what I watched was this gun trace task force with different people in it at the time. We would get a lot of pressure because we didn't get as much stats and we didn't get as much guns. But the gun trace task force, they would go out there and just pull over car after car after car. Search it, nothing, move on. Search it, nothing, move on.
Imagine how difficult it must be to get all those warrants for each car.
Right.
I mean, the judges must have been like, you guys get out of here.
That's why guys quit, because of the paperwork.
Yeah. So
Go ahead.
I'm joking, of course. There were no warrants.
You get
of
it
course.
because there are no warrants.
Yeah.
That's the joke.
Yeah, or probable cause.
Right. So we watched all that happen, and we had our suspicions on different things that occurred out there. But what you always like to miss, because people like to miss the fact that they like to glorify that I was a cop and stuff like that. But I've dedicated myself to being a scholar and looking at all this and really evaluating what our reform measures have to be, what has gone wrong. And during that research, one of the things I came across was this study that they've done. There's a couple of them around the world, but one that's really powerful. That we know this. But they proved it, that when you go into the police academy, you go in with a higher level of moral integrity than you leave it. So the whole process and culture of policing does knock everybody down in their moral perception of the world, and largely that's because it goes by a consequentialist mentality, which is the outcomes justify whatever system you go by in, which I don't subscribe to that type of thinking, but that's a general thinking in our society.
What is the thinking?
Consequentialist.
The ends justify the
So
means.
the ends justify the means.
Oh, okay.
So and they're taught. You're saying they're taught that in the academy.
Well, that's kind of what
Essentially,
criminal
take that
justice
message.
is as a concept,
Yes.
is that the ends justify the means. So, I mean, this results in obviously cops having less integrity. And you have the rare exceptions. Like one of my trainees that I had has been in this studio. That's Joey Crystal. So you have to understand that when he testified against cops being criminal, he had to have a level of integrity to start with that was astronomically high for him to get to the point where he was willing to testify in court that these guys did this. So you get officers like that. But another officer that I went to the academy with, and I know very well, is Sergeant Wayne Jenkins, who's the current leader of this gun trace task force. And you have people like him who go in with that same kind of attitude that they're going to change policing, they're going to be good, they're going to do the right thing by the damn FBI, and they're having these conversations back and forth, colluding on who they're going to rob and how they're going to manipulate the overtime to get profited. But 2 years ago, I sat in this damn studio and told you all of those things.
Yeah.
Because for the last 50 years before that, every single rap song and every single impoverished community and oppressed community has been telling you these things too. So how long does it have to get before we wake up? And we think that this DOJ thing is going to do anything, but there's been like 20 DOJ reforms and none of them have had any success. Even by their own measurement, they say half of them have been successful. So that's their judgment. But these cities
So
have
you're
been
saying them grading themselves, they get an F.
grading themselves, yeah, they're at 50%. So they've already failed in their own measurement of themselves. But these cities are Oakland, Los Angeles, California, Chicago. These cities have not changed one bit. So everybody that thinks that Baltimore's DOJ thing is going to change anything, you're out of your mind.
So I would come on the Young Turks when I first started coming on the Young Turks, and I would say things like you would say, and they all looked at me like a Martian just shit me out of an egg. And like, whoa, what are you talking about? And I would make statements like, cops are all a half turn of the screw away from being criminals themselves, if not already.
You're already operating in the gray, essentially. I mean, you're doing a job that is inherently violent to kind of control a situation. You're called into the gray.
Yeah.
Okay, I just have to say one thing in defense of cops.
No, don't do that on this show.
No, but
Cut the camera. Cut his mic.
The tough situation that we find ourselves in is that we ask you guys who are cops to go into situations that most of us would never go into. I'm talking about even a simple thing like a domestic disturbance or something where you don't know what the hell is going to happen. And obviously, I don't know much about this world of law enforcement except I see that they're real bad cops. There's certainly the opportunity for abuse. I mean, it would appear that the history of policing is replete with examples of that. And then there are a bunch of guys who are trying to do a good thing. I mean, they're trying to get into neighborhoods and have relationships there. So I just worry about painting with too broad a brush, although obviously this is heinous what's going on in Baltimore, and it's going on, as you say, in all of these major cities. I guess I get to a question, which is
Has nothing to do with officers.
How big a group?
This has nothing to do with officers. That's the wrong place to look.
So here-
hold on. The problem is that gun trace task force that was doing the things that I watched, that guy is a commander now, running an entire district, who taught all these guys how to do this stuff, and they're the ones issuing the orders. So the mayors and the command staff that you all vote for and that we all think we're going to switch out and be the ones, they're the ones directing these guys to do this. And when we as a society think we need to punish these people, what we're doing is we are supporting a system that incentivizes their corruption, and then when they're corrupt, we punish them, but we never punish the people that incentivize the corruption.
Oh, wow. Michael, that's a good point.
That's great.
I wanted to say two things. One, to Mark's point about you don't want to paint with too broad of a brush. I would make the argument that we paint with too fine of a brush.
Yeah.
Often, all the time. That whole thing of it's just the bad apples and we have to get rid of the bad apples. And what Michael's saying, it's not the bad apples.
Bad barrel.
It's a bad barrel, but it's also systemic, right? Meaning that it's the way they're, like you have a different idea on how to police. And I'm going to paraphrase it and then you can correct me. Is that normally when someone appoints a police chief or someone gets hired as a police chief, he tells the community, this is how we're policing. What Michael's idea is that, no, the community sits down and tells the police chief how we want you to police. Hey, this is what you do when you find a truant or a juvenile that's out past curfew. This is how we want you to handle it. This is how we want you to handle traffic tickets. This is how we want you to handle this. This is how we want you to handle things. And this is how we want our escalation of violence to go. And tell me, is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's close enough. I mean, it's really, you got to have a board that says that this is what you're going to do. But this is not my idea. This is corporate social responsibility theory that's practiced out there and proven in the business world, and then using stakeholder theory to identify who's the interest is in your community, and using a Delphi interview technique to build consensus of the community to develop a model that's unique to what your city needs.
And so instead of a one-size-fit-all with kind of an authoritarian approach to policing, you come from the other way, and the community tells the cops how to police, which is a much better.
It's my job to serve you. Protect and serve literally means protect and serve the mayor. And remember, the mayor has a 4 to 8 year goal of their own personal interest. They don't give a shit about your city. All they care about is advancing to the next level. Martin O'Malley in Baltimore is the primary example of that. Mr. Carcetti from The Wire, right there, you're watching him, and you saw his charade end up trying to run for Democrat as a president, and that's exactly what it looks like. He didn't give a shit about Baltimore, and none of these mayors do. Otherwise, he'd give up the power of their police department so you could have it, because that's what they said they were going to do, is represent you.
So let me just get back to the story. Let's finish the story. Rosenstein said the amount of money the officers would seize without any charges being filed ranged from hundreds of dollars to $200,000. And these are poor people, by the way. Some of the alleged overtime abuses include one officer who claimed overtime for a day of gambling at a casino. Another officer was paid while vacationing in Myrtle Beach. Oh, that's that guy? The indictment claims Jenkins was the worst overtime offender in fiscal 2016. His salary was $85,000, but he received more than $83,000 in additional overtime pay. 5 of the officers claimed more than $50,000 in overtime that year. This kind of conduct by police officers tarnishes the reputation of all police officers, Rosenstein said.
You know what I would say? Let me interrupt right there. This kind of conduct by the DOJ and you, Rosenstein, that is what represents it, because you didn't go after any of the people that actually made this happen.
So, like, who would you want him to go after?
You got to go after the people training to do this, the ones incentivizing them to do this. So when you had B-Field there and going after bad guys with guns, this is what bad guys with guns is. This is the program. When they say violent repeat offenders and you're targeting things and you want to get guns off the streets, these are the programs. You create criminals doing this. You don't prevent them.
Oh, you mean you create criminals with a program that's to get the guns off the street program?
You're going and you're just searching people and grabbing them and making criminals out of them and charging them because you give these units complete autonomy with no supervision whatsoever.
But they also have to make a certain number of arrests, so you're incentivizing
these
them to
are this group right here, Gun Trace Task Force. These are the heroes of the police department. These are what every plainclothes officer or narcotics desiring detective looks to go to. This is where they want to be.
Why?
Because you have no fucking supervision.
Oh, really?
I read the
no quotas. No.
You have quotas. You have to be the best. You have to get the most. But they don't give a fuck how you get there.
So I read the Baltimore Sun did the story about this, obviously, also. And what I find interesting, considering what Michael is saying, is a number of the upper level echelon or upper level command personnel who were quoted. It's a lot of, we need to root out this sort of thing in our police force, and they let down the community, and good cops don't like to work with bad cops like this, and a lot of stuff. And it really is all focused on concentrate your attention on these guys and what they've done, and don't think about me, who is their boss, who should have, at the very least, should have known what was going on.
Think about Freddie Gray being killed. Who didn't have the seatbelts in there? Who wasn't doing supervising? Who left crappy equipment? Who made those officers do those things? All the people that didn't get any attention. The only people that were on trial were the 6 people that were subjected to following these orders. Right. Nobody given the orders.
But that's because the system is set up, it would seem, to prevent their prints from being on this situation. The administrative fingerprints are not on the situation. I mean, it's tough to trace it back until you're sitting here kind of doing it on the Freddie Gray thing. And even in the situation with the gun shakedown, you're saying, okay, well, who are we supposed to go after? You're saying the culture has to be dissembled and reassembled, but that's from a legal standpoint, that's a tough situation to make. So this guy Rosenstein, I guess he's just executing that which he can do by law. The bigger task that
Rico, you just got to get one goddamn thing. One.
So you're saying they could approach this in the way you often approach, like, you know, going up the chain, up the ladder.
This can go all the way to the commissioner.
So
Easy.
you're saying that you could you could lean on these guys to turn on their supervisors.
Totally.
But they won't do that.
No, they're not even going to ask them the question.
Right.
Oh, really? All right, so let's finish this article. We have to go. Baltimore Police Commissioner Kevin Davis said it was a difficult day for the city and a punch in the gut for his police force. I bet it wasn't. But he said such crackdowns are part of change and would be applauded by his officers. I bet it's not. The report claimed officers routinely conducted unlawful stops and used excessive force, often targeting black residents in low-income African-American neighborhoods. Vanita Gupta, head of the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division and host on CNN, said the department's zero-tolerance strategy had little impact on crime solving while severely damaging community relations.
It had no impact on crime solving, for the record. It had a negative impact on crime solving. Those things create crimes because when criminals are marginalized in society, they have to commit a crime for a reason. Most of those things are lack of opportunity and economic realms. But whatever that is we don't have any systems that even ask the question of why the person committed the crime to begin with. All we care about is throwing them into a prison cell, treating them in a way that we would never allow an animal to be treated, while all the people that tell them to do these things continue to skate on.
All right. So
Sorry, I interrupt your stories.
No, it's
Can
fine.
I mean,
it's fine.
I'll just keep.
Let me
No,
let me go back to this
like,
last
keep-
thing. 6 officers were charged in connection with Freddie Gray's death. 3 were acquitted. Charges against the others were then dropped. Now, that pisses me off. And I say that they should, prosecute those cops and throw cops in jail who commit crimes, which would be most of the police department if they actually did that. But when you catch them like this, I say you throw them in jail because my theory is that if the part of the reason why you prosecute a crime is to make sure it doesn't happen in the future. And if you don't prosecute a crime, you're guaranteeing it will happen again in the future. You have a different opinion on that.
I don't have an opinion on that. I'm a scientist. I don't deal in opinions. You do.
Yeah, Jimmy, you piece of shit.
burnt.
I mean, it's been demonstrated time and time again.
Oh, we got to go. We got to go. All right, so we'll be right back. We'll be right back. So if you want to stick around, we got a lot more coming up. Michael's going to say something stupid in a second. and I'm going to fucking tell him why he's wrong. And then we're going to, I have a video that's going to blow your mind about Bill Clinton in the 90s. It will. Malcolm has a happy birthday. Plus, he's going to
No, I don't have a birthday today.
We're going to talk about Betsy DeVos. He's got some great stuff on Betsy DeVos.
I don't think we're going to get to it. That's my
We've
prediction.
got a lot of stuff
We're
to
not gonna
get to.
it.
So what you do now is you go to tytnetwork.com/join. So if you want to see the rest of it, but if you're already a member, you go to tytnetwork.com/memberslive. So there you go. So make your donation. It's $10 a month. You get access to all the everything and all. There's lots of post-game shows and lots of great stuff. All right, we'll be right back in 5 minutes.